Subscribe to The Honest Critique for current affairs, movie, book, and product reviews. Also, make sure you press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the video series are solely those of the individuals and do not necessarily represent those of The Honest Critique and its employees. The following video contains strong language which may be offensive to some viewers. Viewer discretion advised.
So, hello and welcome to a very special episode we are recording today. Former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Kahn, after being granted bail in a graft case and barred authorities from arresting him for next 2 weeks, again criticized the Pakistan Army Chief General Asim Munir, saying the general's actions are maligning the military. Khan's remarks mark an escalation in his campaign against the powerful military and the ISI, which facilitated his rise in power in 2018 election, but fell out with him last year after sharp differences on a range of issues. To talk about Imran Khan's fallout with the army and the support he still carries within the people, we have Dr. Aparna with us. Dr. Aparna Pande is the director of the Initiative on the Future of India and South Asia at the Hudson Institute, USA. Ma'am, thank you so much for taking your time and speaking to us.
Of course. Wonderful to talk to you, Rathandeep.
So, ma'am, firstly, I wanted to ask you the very basic thing that we're seeing a large number of people on the streets who are protesting, and the level of, I don't remember any other prime minister actually have got this support. It's quite startling. Why does Imran continues to enjoy this mass support despite charges of corruption against him and his deplorable performance as a prime minister?
A couple of things. First, Rathandeep, you are young, so you do not remember the mass support that Nawaz Sharif enjoyed, that Benazir Bhutto enjoyed when she returned in 2007, the hundreds of thousands of people who lined the streets of Karachi when she returned and she could barely move when she moved from the airport to her home. On Nawaz Sharif, when Nawaz Sharif was removed from power in 2017, there were hundreds of thousands of PMLN supporters on the streets. And of course, we can go back to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. So Imran Khan is not the first Pakistani politician or former prime minister whose supporters have come out on the streets. The difference between Khan's supporters and the supporters of all former prime ministers who have been arrested, he's not the first prime minister to be arrested. He's not the first prime minister to be charged for corruption, and he's not the first prime minister to be taken from court. The difference is that it's normally been a tradition in Pakistan, and it's a very South Asian tradition, that when you are accused, then the political leader goes to court, hears the charges, is arrested, goes to prison, and applies for bail. Going to prison is considered, sort of part of the course. You are a political leader, you will be accused of corruption. Khan is a celebrity. He's not really a politician. He's a celebrity who has a cult following. The cult following who believes he's their messiah and he will resolve all their issues. And so his followers are also cult followers who are not going to sort of accept the fact that their leader has been arrested and therefore are out on the streets and destroying public buildings, government buildings, libraries, and burning them down. Why does Imran have popularity? Cult leaders do have popularity and populists have popularity. He's not the only one. We can look around the world. People sort of emote. Identity matters to people. Emotion matters to people. And what Imran has managed to do is he has managed to pull on certain things. He's created this narrative. He's a non-dynast. He doesn't believe in dynastic politics. He is not corrupt, which isn't accurate actually, but that's the image he has created. He has said that he sort of, he has the support of the military. He may criticize the army chief, but if you've noticed, he's not criticizing the army. What he's saying is the army is good if the army brings me to power. And the army is good, but their chief is bad. Well, the chief doesn't want me to come back because he has to be careful. His support base, whether it is a retired military or their children or the young people on the streets, are all supporters of military rule. So they don't want to criticize the military. They are upset with the current army chief or the current DGISI, whom they believe do not like Imran. And they want the army to go back to 2018 when the army brought Imran to power and rigged elections to ensure he would be in power and kept him in power and helped him stay in power for 2 years, for 4 years. And so they want the army to go back to doing what the army was doing from 2013, 14 till 2022. And they're upset with the army top brass, not the army per se or the military. Why does he end? And so all of these factors have managed to create this situation. The judiciary has been politicized. The Pakistani judiciary has for decades always confirmed or verified or supported military rule. They have not been against military rule. When you politicize an institution of state, then that institution of state also starts to interfere in politics. And so the judiciary believes that it can also be one of the the kingmakers. Why should the military alone be a kingmaker? I'll stop there.
So, ma'am, you covered a range of issues actually that probably will be a foundation for the next question that I'm going to ask you. But interesting thing that you mentioned that he criticizes the army chief, not the army actually. You've seen that he has been in loggerheads with General Bajpa in the past as well. But what is Imran's chemistry with actually the way he's connecting even with the army wives or even the chief justice wife, let's say, that he enjoys this mass popularity among a lot of bureaucrats, the serving leaders, the retired generals, even the chief justice wife. What is Imran Khan actually projecting that has not been projected before, that he enjoyed the support within the army?
So actually, the narrative that Imran is projecting is a narrative that the Pakistani military establishment has projected for decades. It's a question of what is Pakistan, why was Pakistan created, and how will Pakistan survive? And all of those are centered on India. That there's a threat from India, there's an existential threat from India, that in order to ensure that Pakistan is not the notion is that India has never accepted partition or the creation of Pakistan, and that India wants to undo that partition. So 1971 Bangladesh, or even recently India's assistance to Afghanistan are all seen as anti-Pakistan. And the only institution which can protect Pakistan is the military. It is important. And why was Pakistan created? For the Muslims. So there is an Islamic nationalism, anti-India, siege mentality, which is at the core of Pakistani identity, which the military has created. To this, what they have added is the military does not believe that civilian politicians can run the country. They have always believed the civilian politicians are corrupt, and civilian politicians will at some stage want to reach out to India and improve relations with India, which has happened. Whether it was Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, whether it was Benazir Bhutto, whether it was Nawaz Sharif, all of them have wanted to improve ties with India. And that's where the army then gets upset with them. So finally, to portray politicians as corrupt, this narrative has been built that the politicians are corrupt and all their money is in foreign bank accounts. This should be something which is familiar to you, because there are many politicians who argue that a country would grow faster if all the money was brought back from Swiss bank accounts or from London bank accounts or from any other bank or anywhere in the world. That doesn't happen. It's not easy to bring money back, and there isn't so much of money in those bank accounts that would raise Pakistan's GDP. So all of these combined are part of the narrative the army has built. And that's the narrative that Imran believes and Imran portrays. And so the army has, since the 1960s, tried to create or help raise a civilian politician who will buy this narrative and who will listen to them. They have not succeeded, because Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was a creature of the army who went against them. Nawaz Sharif was a creature of the army who went against them. But mainly because they wanted to grow the economy, move away from giving military funding and improve ties with India. Imran's problem is that Imran uses the army's narrative against them, and he is more hawkish than the army is. So when General Bajwa wanted to reach out to India in 2021, the ceasefire, sort of also the sort of, the trade, sort of emergency trade between India and Pakistan, Imran Khan pushed back against that. When General Bajwa wanted to reopen relations. So the army chiefs have tried to sort of, at certain times reach out, and they don't want to be as hawkish. But Imran is basically their creature who is now using their narrative against them. So the problem for the army is that how do you combat a narrative that you have created and monsters that you have nurtured? It is very difficult to fight your own narrative.
So, ma'am, as you mentioned about how Imran Khan is actually projecting the army narrative, we have seen also how he has actually Islamized, actually. We haven't seen this Imran Khan version previously that he is bringing this rigorous Islamist speeches. Every speech in a rally we see, he's bringing Islam actually in the context. In fact, a few days back, if you have noticed, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we have seen Imam actually getting lynched to death because he compares Imran Khan with the Prophet, actually. How much is this of Imran Khan version different from, let's say, the other politicians who are currently there? Let's say Bilawal Bhutto, he came a few days back actually to India. We have seen him actually not taking that of a stand. So is Imran Khan still in the league for being the prime minister, another term, using this Islamic card?
So Imran, is one of those who buys the narrative, the Islamist narrative. If we go back to sort of, he entered politics in the 1990s. And yes, there are many people who believe that because he was a cricketer and a playboy and lived in England, he would not be Islamist or Islamo-nationalist. But he's actually more Islamo-nationalist or Islamist than many others. If you read his memoir, if you listen to every speech that Imran has given right from the first time he entered politics, if you look at who his supporters are, if you look at his support he has received from Islamist groups, you look at whether it's the TTP likes him, which is a very scary proposition. The Tehreek-e-Labbaik, Ya Rasulullah, Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan, the outfit which supports blasphemy, likes Imran Khan. Most of his every speech of his, especially when he was in power, when he came to power as prime minister, he talked about setting up a state like the state that the Prophet had centuries ago, Riayat-e-Madina. For the last 1 year, since he lost the vote of no confidence, he has in every speech talked about it not being like a battle between rivals, between Ratandeep and me, running for mayorship of a city. So we will disagree on, our views, what we want to do. His ends up being that it's a battle between good and evil, haq and batil. It's like, it's an ideological battle between me and the other side, and either I win or everything gets destroyed. And his supporters believe that as well. His supporters believe that he is right and everybody else is wrong. And so his narrative is Islamist. His supporters have a very strong Islamist. And again, that's part of the militaries or the armies narrative that they have pushed for Pakistani identity, that Pakistan was established as a state not just for Muslims. It was the first Islamic state in the world, Islamic Republic of Pakistan. And its constitution has over the years, every time it is revised, become more Islamic. It's more Sunni, it's more the minorities, even the Muslim minorities are not really treated well. So, but Imran has a strong Islamist, Islamo-nationalist narrative, and he believes that, but he also knows that he can, draw in those within the retired military who have an ideological perspective, those in the masses who do, and those who support the Islamist parties who may feel that if you support Imran, there's a greater likelihood of your person, coming into power than it would be if they supported Jamaat-e-Islami or Jamiyat-e-Ulema Hind.
And ma'am, since we are talking about how much he has impacted the politics of it, I want to go a little one step ahead and understand the elections, the coming elections. We have seen Imran Khan dissolving the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and the Punjab Assembly, claiming that there should be an election in the near future. And of course, there is an election which is planned in the end of this year. But do you think this election will be possible, especially with the mass support that he's getting? And if the election happens today, he claims to win it actually by a landslide margin.
So, I am not a psephologist. I will never predict elections in any country. I will leave that to those who predict. Predicting elections in Pakistan is even tougher because you and I may not have gone to a casino or Vegas, but we know the rule that works in a casino. The house always wins. You may win on a day. You may win 3 times in a day. But at the end of the day, the house will always make more money than you will, right? That's how the rules, that's how the table is set. And in Pakistan, it doesn't matter who wins. Imran may have won this battle, and therefore till Monday he cannot be arrested. But the army still has the entire pack of cards with them, and they've had for decades. They may be bruised. They may have a number of their family members who support Imran Khan, but attacks on the core commander's house and on the general headquarters is not going to endear Imran Khan or his supporters or his party to the army leadership. No institution likes a direct attack, and that to the army. Which actually has viewed itself and continues to view itself as Pakistan's sole savior and a very popular entity. So what will happen? Imran wants early elections. Imran's view is that if there are early elections, he will win. I don't know if that is if that will happen. We must let's go back to 2018. The first time his party ever won elections. The military rigged the elections. They were considered rigged by every observer inside and outside of Pakistan. The previous 2 elections had not been rigged, but 2018 was heavily rigged. They barred certain politicians from other political parties. They caused splinters within those parties, and people from the PMLN, PPP, and other parties joined PTI. Even then, Imran's party did not win even a simple majority. They needed, parties with 1 member, 3 member, 5 member to join their coalition to give them just enough for a simple majority. And the only way they were able to pass anything in National Assembly was when the military would basically coerce other political parties to abstain so that the government could pass what it had to in National Assembly. So with all that backing of the army, when the army was rigging elections in his favor, his political party could not win a simple majority. When the house is against you, it is going to be very difficult. One example, I would say some months ago, I hope you recall, there were by-elections in Punjab for 11 seats. Of those 11 seats, all 11 had been held by PTI. The 7 on which Imran ran, Imran won. But you can't run on 342 National Assembly seats. He may have run on 7 Punjab Assembly seats, but he will have to give up all 7 because he would want to be in the National Assembly. The 4 on which he did not run, the PTI lost. So the question is, it's a very cult-like following. If Ratandeep runs, we will vote. If Ratandeep does not run, we will not vote for the other person who's on the seat, who's on that. And so whether Imran will be able to whether his social media popularity translates, and diaspora, the Pakistani diaspora loves him, because again, it's a very diaspora phenomenon of a celebrity, whether that translates into, actually people going out to vote on elections. Secondly, yes, they're supposed to have elections in October, but the question would be, if there is so much of chaos, will the election commission and will the military actually want elections in October or November? We don't know. It will all depend on what happens in the next, I would say, week or 2 weeks with respect to Imran. Does Imran, does he stay out of jail and on bail? Does he get arrested again? Does the government decide to impose some kind of a, emergency so as to because of all the chaos, political, economic, security, does the is there going to be a caretaker government for a longer period of time? Normally, Pakistan has a caretaker government for the 3 months once the elections are announced, so that it's normally a technocratic government which oversees elections. And the advantage with that kind of government is that government can also sign an IMF loan without being blamed for it in elections, because it's not a government, it's technocrats who are running the government. So will they go for a technocratic establishment for 5-6 months to calm things down, get security, get domestic politics, get the economy on track? It's still, I would say we have to wait and see, because it's difficult with Pakistan.
Yeah, and ma'am, one thing is for sure that how we are looking at, let's say, Shehbaz Sharif reaching out and having a good relation with the army. Today as well, I saw one of the tweets he mentioned about how the attacks are actually condemnable and he is going to take actions, and how Imran Khan is attacking the army. It's not good. On the other hand, we see Bilawal Bhutto has actually taken a leaf from his, let's say, his parents, actually, what they have used, or his grandfather, that he is using a rhetoric against India actually to gain public support. So between these two, does the army actually will place a bet on the next time, or we see someone like Nawaz Sharif coming back to Pakistan?
So I would the problem every civilian politician in Pakistan, I would say, I'm not talking about someone like Imran Khan. I'm saying a traditional civilian politician, whether it is, Nawaz Sharif or Shehbaz or, Bilawal or Zardari or Benazir Bhutto, any of them. The problem they've always faced is that they know that better relations with India are the only way forward for Pakistan. Pakistan's domestic politics will calm down. Pakistan's economy will be better when they trade with India. They will have to spend less money on military. They will have less to worry about on their border. The problem for them is that every time, if they openly say they want better relations with India, then the army does not like it, and they are crossing the army's red line. And so every time they have been in power, the civilian prime ministers have reached out to India. Nawaz Sharif reached out every time he was in power. Benazir Bhutto reached out. Zardari's government reached out. Yusuf Raza Gilani reached out. So they have reached out. Now the problem is who Shehbaz Sharif and Bilawal Bhutto both know that better relations with India are important. But they have elections coming up. They have Imran Khan, who, if they say that better relations with India, then he will say, well, you have given up on Kashmir and you are not, you are anti-Pakistan, you are a traitor. And that is what will then will get popular on the streets or in the media, and they will get attacked. If you recall, when Imran Khan ran in 2017, 2018, he focused on the Modi-Nawaz Sharif conversations, and the slogan which his party used was Modi ka yaar Gaddar. So he directly targeted Nawaz Sharif. Now, the reason why he won was not because of anti-India. The reason Imran won because of the army rigged it. But it made for a good slogan on social media and in his campaigns. So I believe that Shehbaz Sharif and Bilawal Bhutto are both in their own ways trying not to ruffle the army's feathers. Shehbaz Sharif is not saying much except politely, tweeting or making statements, but emphasizing that Kashmir is important. Bilawal, I believe, in his enthusiasm, went a little overboard. He's still young. He does not have the experience that a politician would. And so, sort of in the desire to be, as they say, more loyal than the queen, he overshot what he sort of, he said things which he should not have, and no other mature politician would have. With respect to sort of, who would the army want to win in elections? The Pakistan army has always wanted a coalition government. They like a weak prime minister. They like a weak government. They do not like a strong prime minister. They have tried to rig elections so that the ruling party has is weak enough to need their support, but is strong enough to get some things passed. They also don't like the party that wins power in the National Assembly. They would like that it does not win power in Punjab, so that there's always a kind of a tension between the largest state and the political party which is in power. So they like that. Now, can they always ensure it? No. They have succeeded sometimes, but often, twice with Nawaz Sharif, they have failed. Will Nawaz Sharif come back? Nawaz Sharif is the vote getter of the PMLN. If the PMLN sort of elections take place, they will need Nawaz Sharif there campaigning and getting out the people, because his popularity is still there. But when he returns, he will have to first go to jail and then get bail, because right now he has cases against him. And so sort of the most likely scenario would be, if they announce elections, then Nawaz would come back and, rally the voters and rally the base. Also, as of now, he cannot become prime minister because he was disqualified. A resolution was passed which basically said that anybody who's been prime minister twice or three times cannot become, and he's already been prime minister 3 times. So sort of, there are those things he would have to, sort of tide over. But would he like to be prime minister once again? I'm sure. Who doesn't?
Since you're mentioning about the army, and the first and the foremost thing, a lot of people who have seen those visuals unfolding with PTI workers actually ransacking and looting public properties, it's this one thing that why was not the law and order situation, or why was the law and order situation allowed to escalate to this extent that we have seen this ransacking? And when Imran Khan actually goes and attacks the army, for how long will the army actually keep quiet and not act on it? Is it because the division of the army that allows the army to not act on it?
So, yes, I mean, sort of, those scenes, I think sort of, there was, I mean, I am not privy to it, but I believe sort of what happened was they must, and I'm sure we will see this in the coming days, if army officers are transferred or moved out. I believe the corps commander has been reassigned from Lahore. So most likely his and his staff are being blamed for not, responding quickly enough or ensuring security of his house and property. But I believe a lot of it was that, that there was some people within the military who believed that sometimes letting off steam will calm things down. And I think there was this notion that if we let people just protest, they will not necessarily burn things and they will not do that much of damage, but that letting off steam will then quieten things. Whoever took that decision must be rethinking that decision today and thinking that was it right to let off so much of steam and allow, ransacking of property, attacking on the GHQ. There will also be questions about, was the intelligence services watching all this, and did they have any idea about what was happening, and did they not convey it to their, their army counterparts that this is going to happen, so you need to have, sort of stronger reinforcement, and you need to make sure that these guys are not just going to protest, they are going to indulge in looting and arson, not just walking away with peacocks, but many other things. And so I'm sure we will see in the coming days what happens. Was there division? I still believe that the Pakistan army is a united institution. They unite behind their chief. It is not, it's not sort of an army where you have had colonels' coups. That is not how it happens. There is no colonel coup. When the coup the coup happens with the top brass, and they take over the state. It doesn't really happen. Some young people, colonels and majors, revolt and the revolution takes place. That hasn't happened. It's too big an army, and it's too united an army under its chief. But are there are there differences within people? Within the top brass on how to deal with Imran? I'm sure there are. And there are also different views. Just as we talked about the fact that the army has created a narrative which is Islamist, anti-India, anti-Western, pro-China. This narrative is also there within the army and the military. So there are those within the military who are professional officers and who may view India as a rival, but who may be willing to, have the ceasefire like General Bajwa did. That, we don't want war with India. We just want to keep that rhetoric. And we want to build our military, but we don't have any Islamist view. And then there'll be those who actually believe in that Islamist ideological narrative and who view India not as a rival, but as somebody which is antithetical to Pakistan's existence and needs to be wiped out by any means possible. So are those two views within the Pakistan army? Yes. Normally, the pragmatists have won. Which is why we haven't had, the one chief I can think of who was both Islamist and to some extent pragmatist was Ziaul Haq, because he was personally religious and ideological, but he was pragmatic enough not to want war with India. But normally the chiefs have been pragmatist. They have not been ideological, but who can foresee what happens in the future? What will the army do, when this frontal attack? So as I said, he is attacking the army chiefs, General Bajwa earlier, General Asim Munir Shah now, the DGI, ISI, Lieutenant General Nadeem Anjum, and, DG ISPR. He's not attacking the army, but his followers have attacked army installations. They have these social media hashtags and trends which are going on. So the army will need to reassert control. Now, it will depend on how strong the army chief's position is within and how much support he has with his corps commanders and others for what steps he takes. Will the steps simply be to ensure that Imran is rearrested and is disqualified and cannot run for elections, and then the government is allowed to muddle along till August or so, and then there's a caretaker government and elections are held in October, November? Or if things get worse and Imran is back on the streets and his followers are increasing the chaos, will the army prefer to go for something like an extended caretaker government through an emergency provision? Or finally, with the army believe that the only way to send a message is to come in through a direct coup? That is normally been their last resort. And in these days, it's not been one which they prefer, but that may be. And finally, to answer, since we have a few minutes left, to answer your question about how does the US look at it? I think most countries want stability. Even China wants stability. The Chinese foreign minister was in Pakistan last week and he called for stability in Pakistan and he asked the army to ensure stability. And so I think most countries, including India, want stability in Pakistan, political, economic, security, without the chaos which Imran Khan supporters are creating on the streets. And so if there is some way that the army brings stability, whether through backdoor, slightly overt pressure, I think most countries around the world in the Middle East, United States, China will accept and will welcome that stability. It is preferable to a nuclear weapons country of 240 million continuing in chaos.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you so much. You summed it up really well. And I hope the army doesn't actually goes back around the judiciary and tries to prosecute Imran Khan actually behind that, because the judiciary has allowed him 2 weeks of no arrest. So I hope that doesn't happen. but you can never predict anything in Pakistan. But so, well, thank you so much, ma'am, for taking your time and speaking to us.
Of course. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.